Nance, you know, the Kentucky Democratic Party is having a lot of fun with this. They're putting out, they've got the Cossack hat for sale, they've got cups, they've got shirts. You know, that's hilarious. But this isn't funny. Actually, the challenge for Mitch McConnell now is that he's been exposed, right, as somebody who either is willing to look the other way and not push through these bills that will actually help secure our country from foreign elections, or he's very interested in seeing lots of money come in to companies that are tied to his former aides that are lobbying for. So either way, it's not good, and it doesn't sound like good news for our national security at all. Malcolm Nance.
No, it's a national security nightmare that we're involved with. And I don't find it funny, but I do think the Sobercat, the Moscow Mitch, is absolutely appropriate here. Mitch McConnell was the man who stopped in August 2016 any reference to the Russians attacking our election when Barack Obama wanted to warn the nation. He said he would not sign off on that. Then he helps lift the sanctions on Russian companies. Then that Russian company and its Russian subsidiaries throw money into Kentucky. This is, you know, in the old days there used to be this image of the insidious Soviet claws coming up over the Iron Curtain and coming into America through the Communist Party of USA. That doesn't exist anymore. It's the same people, ex-communists, former Soviet intelligence agents, and their oligarchs who now act like guys at a strip club throwing $100 bills out, and the Republicans are there to take every one of those bills. We are being infiltrated through a global oligarchy that views money as the most definitive way to destroy American democracy.
And the thing is, Dean, you know, McConnell is framing his opposition to pushing through these bills as that it's purely political. He's trying to say the Democrats are playing politics, but there is a piece in the New York Times that says that, you know, he's never been for campaign finance regulations. He wants there to be open money, which, to Malcolm's point, is quite dangerous when the open money is filtered through foreign countries that have interests that are not in our best interest. But he's concerned that if he welcomes any kind of a bill, he's concerned that it could open up disclosure requirements. He's leery of even entering into legislative negation that could touch on fundraising and campaign spending, meaning he wants the door open.
He absolutely wants the door open, and I love this got under Moscow Mitch's skin that he's, and people on Twitter are just,
well, his shell, technically.
Under his shell, like, dude, where's my neck is trending on Twitter at times, and I think people are having, and I literally, I'm not kidding, I bought the shirt that says just say "niet" to Mitch McConnell, and I will bring it and wear it on this show. So let's have fun with it. Let's get under the skin of the necklace turtle. But in a serious point, let's not lose sight of one thing. This is to help Donald Trump. Yeah. This is the game is to get Donald Trump reelected, because in 2016, they know, as Mueller testified, that Russia helped Donald Trump get elected. Adam Schiff had that great exchange on that very point. So you had them help. And look what's going on now. Just yesterday, Donald Trump defending North Korea, even though the UN resolution violations, and saying that, hey, that's not a real violation, because in my view, as the FBI has pointed out, North Korea has a robust, sophisticated hacking weaponry. He wants Russia, and he wants North Korea to help in this election, and this is something we have to wear. The new axis of evil on some levels, North Korea, Russia, Trump, and Mitch McConnell, and that's what we have to deal with. So he'll never do anything, and it's not McCarthyism, Mitch McConnell, it's called patriotism, and we're patriots, and we're fighting for you just to secure our election, because if it's on the votes, we win. Yeah. But they need the help of Russia. They know they need the help.
I mean, and Jill Wine-Banks, it is sort of bizarre, right? That, I mean, we've had presidents quit office, you know, over, you know, a Watergate break-in. But now what it looks like, I mean, you have the Tom Barrack situation where now there's an investigation of whether or not he was passing, you know, scripts of Trump's speeches by the UAE, you know, and selling influence to that region of the world. You have this where you've got foreign entities buying their way into the leader of the Senate's state through the governor and through the Senate Majority Leader. I don't understand, you know, how there's not more of an alarm going off. It's great to do the funny stuff, but this actually is quite scary. We've already had the NRA ridden through with Russian money. I mean, where do we go from here, Jill?
I think it is very serious. So although it's funny, and actually the billboards in Kentucky are growing. My favorite happens to be Putin's Mitch. I like that one the best. but it isn't funny. It really isn't funny. And what we really need to focus on here is the power of Mitch McConnell. He has almost total control over what the Senate will consider. He has blocked common sense legislation to protect our elections, simple things that include spending more money and allowing paper ballot backups. That's essential for the security of our election in 2016, and he's doing the bidding of the president in not letting that go forward.
Yeah.
That's a serious problem. It's the same thing when he wouldn't let a vote happen on Merrick Garland. This is something that the power of that office should not prevent legislation being considered. Right now, it would take a majority, or I think almost unanimous Senate, to have a bill come up if the Mitch McConnell doesn't permit it to happen, and that's something that we need to focus on. It's not funny.
You know, I mean, Barbara McQuaid, can the public sue? Is there a possibility that, you know, voters in this country who are at risk of being disenfranchised by foreign governments, is there a class action lawsuit that people could file demanding that their government protect us? Protect us.
You know, really, you would require some sort of cause of action and some sort of statute. So I think the recourse that voters have and citizens have is at the ballot box. And of course, if Russians have their way, we're going to lose our power there as well. I think that we need to take very seriously the threat that Robert Mueller says is happening as we sit here. Russia is attacking our elections, and Mitch McConnell is working with President Trump to diminish that threat. I think it comes from a place not necessarily out of partnership with Russia, but of blinded by self-interest. And, you know, I actually don't love the phrase Moscow Mitch, because I think it resorts to the same low-grade discourse that President Trump engages in. And I also think that it undermines the seriousness of the issue. And the issue is an attack on our democracy, our very existence. It's an existential threat. And we need people like Mitch McConnell and others to take it seriously. And if he won't, he needs to be removed and replaced by someone who will.
Well, I mean, there's a thing called impeachment, but it doesn't look like Democrats are going to do that. So it's down to when they go low, you know, people need to go, I guess, lower. At least it bothers him. Naveed, you and I have talked about this, because it isn't just Russia now. You know, you do have the Saudis, you do have other countries that are trying to buy their way in.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, every other country in the world looked at what Russia was doing and said, hey, you know, perhaps this is a mechanism that we can use to advance our interest. And look, we talk about the manipulation of voters, whether it's suppression or Facebook, or the potential of changing votes, but what we back away, and what Mitch McConnell doesn't want to discuss, is the manipulation of the candidate themselves. And the best way to manipulate a potential presidential candidate is with money. And look, if you have ways, sophisticated laundering schemes that are more akin to white-collar crime to get money to a U.S. person, and that U.S. person can write a check to a super PAC or to a candidate themselves, the candidate has not broken any laws by accepting that money or accepting that aid from that super PAC. But there is no doubt that that is money that is coming from a foreign government with the aim of advancing their national interest at the expense of ours. And you only need to look at what's happening with Saudi Arabia, the fact that we're on the toehold of getting into a war with Iran, which I believe is in large part because of what Saudi did up until the election, the influence they have gained. It's shocking, and exactly as Barbara said, I think that Moscow Mitch is funny, but we lose sight of how serious this is. Look, President Obama, on the eve of the 2016 election, called Vladimir Putin and said that if he actually interfered in our election, he would consider it up to an act of war. 2020, who is going to be manning that ship? Who is going to make that call? Who is going to stand up to the bully and protect our democracy? No one.
It sounds like no one.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, it is. And Natasha, at the same time, you know, as much as people are saying, yeah, you're right, it isn't funny, but it's the one thing that's gotten under this guy's shell, skin, whatever. He didn't care when he was, you know, likened to a cocaine dealer. That didn't bother him. It didn't bother him that he stole a Supreme Court seat and was caught. But this bothers him. And so there's a possibility, and you can tell me from your reporting, Natasha, that there's a possibility that he's so bugged by this title and so incensed by it that he might actually be willing to move on legislation that, even if it isn't perfect, at least would go some of the way toward protecting our elections. Is that rumor or true?
We're seeing a little bit of that. He said recently that, you know, he would be willing to consider certain election security measures that might be taken up by the Congress. It's just this one thing he seems to be very adamant about blocking, which is the Democrats' version of the bill, which would supply a lot more money to the states as needed in order to fortify their defenses ahead of 2020. So we don't exactly know what he's willing to do here. But I immediately noticed how irked he seemed to be about this nickname. When I was reporting out this story about his former staffers that are now lobbyists for this Russian-backed project, you know, his office was very, very they were very engaged, we'll put it that way, with my, with our, the fact that we were going to report this out, and they, were really sensitive about the Moscow Mitch thing, and it wasn't quite clear to them how we were tying the Russia-backed project in Kentucky to the Moscow Mitch handle. They were really kind of irked by that. But the fact of the matter is that none of this looks good for someone who has said that his entire career has been, one of the chief pillars of it has been opposition to the Kremlin. Well, if that's the case, then he's not really showing it at the most pivotal moment right before the 2020 election.
Yeah, and Malcolm, really quickly, if he will not stand up for the country and do something, it's hard to believe that he is not less dangerous to the national security of the country than Donald Trump.
No, he's even more dangerous because he has the ability to make sure that all defenses through all measures of legislation are stopped. Donald Trump is actually setting the strategic narrative for Moscow. And, I'm amazed we haven't given him Kremlin Don, right? That needs to happen. Because, and to Barbara McQuaid's point also, it is a joke that we're making, but the only way that this joke can proliferate the truth down to the low information voters is to use this, by the way, this is a military joke technique, which is you have to insult that guy and you have to make it so that his followers laugh at your joke. And that is what is irking all of them. Leningrad Lindsay, Moscow Marco, Moscow Mitch, Kremlin Don, whatever it is, you have to make their meta-narrative appear that they are beholden to those people. And that's the only way that you'll get through to the rest of the population, I'm sorry to say.
I mean, comedy is powerful, Dean.
Absolutely. When people are laughing at these people they don't like, especially authoritarians. And one quick thing, Donald Trump and the Republicans love voter ID laws because it's going to suppress the vote of African Americans and young people and Hispanics because it depresses our side, but they won't secure the election from Russia or North Korea because they believe it's going to help their side. And I think the Democrats, except for Julian Castro, made a mistake not bringing this up at the debate. It transcends politics. Saying our election should be secure. Polls show 80% of Americans think our elections should be secure. Put it on them. Why will you not secure our election for 2020?
Yeah, Julian Castro said it on the debate. Okay, very quick before, what's your pin, Jill? What's your pin? What's your pin? Your pin, Jill.
The Jill's pin today is a picture of Moscow for Moscow Mitch.
See how it works out? You see how we close and open? You see? Dean Obadala, well played. Jill Wine-Banks, Natasha Bertrand, Barbara McQuaid, and Malcolm Nance. You guys are our super panel. Naveed will be back later in the show.